What's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Onochi, and welcome to Engineering Cannabis. I'm your cannabis engineer, your informational weed man. And today's topic, we'll be talking about two aspects of the cannabis industry that's going to be highly profitable now and the coming up years. And I'm talking very lucrative. And this will, in regards to both the private sector and the government sector too. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about scientific research and social research. And people think you might just need a PhD, or in some cases in the scientific, but in social you definitely don't need a PhD. You can open a company and basically start looking at social research, but you need some skills, a set of skills that are very vital, especially in research. So how is this going to play, especially with the social and scientific research? How is it going to be lucrative? Let's look at the social side. Let's look, for example, the biggest problem with the tobacco, it's tobacco itself. It's health risk in basically any individual who has a prolonged usage of tobacco. It's even the Surgeon General warning label is even placed on it. So, for instance, if before this occurred and tobacco was introduced, and in the community, and I was looking at the community, maybe a community in Chicago or somewhere, and I was looking at the community, and I'm seeing problems with correlation with certain diseases like lung cancer, COPD, emphysema. I'm seeing those diseases cropping up with and also correlating with high usage of tobacco products. I'm also looking at gender, male, female, looking at age 18 to 45, 45 to 60, looking at race, looking at occupation, looking at different aspects of these variables that contribute to high usage of the cigarettes or tobacco, and correlation to that with lung cancer, with different diseases. And once that was introduced and I studied it a little bit, and I've seen that correlation, I basically go to each of those private companies and say, hey, run a basically predictive analysis, maybe reduce, see the most impactful variables that impact the not only the usage of the cigarettes, but also their profit margin. See those variables that over time, if the negative impacts of this usage of tobacco will not only impact how the community views your company, but also how your profit margins will fall. And see those variables that directly impact those profit margins and community output. And present it and say, hey, I've collected this data. I've also run a predictive analysis on this data, and I've seen that in a couple of years your profit margin will fall by 30%, and not only will it fall, but the community's reaction to your company will also fall and decline. And based on that, I have a solution for these problems ahead of time, and if you put these solutions, it will reduce the impact of your profit margin, and also reduce the impact of your public persona around the community. If this was done previously, ahead of time, this would have basically made the transition of different companies to lose, most tobacco companies to lose their profit margin a little bit low. So, in respect to cannabis, for instance, when cannabis is rolled out in the United States, and you see now you want to know the major impact of cannabis products. For instance, if a private company comes out and says, hey, I need to know how my cannabis products will basically be taken into consideration in these certain communities. and I can come in and run social engineering, run analysis on these products, on the cannabis products, and the effects of individuals over time. So effects on wealth, health, also incarceration rates, um, effects on individuals within a certain age range, effects on all this will also come in context with profit margins to different companies, especially ones that start infusing cannabis products and basically start selling it in different areas. And you can also help with also identifying hotspots with hotspots that will like a lot of cannabis products too, through social engineering. You can basically, the goal is to basically come up with a mathematical model or come up with a scenario where the profit margins for private companies and all that will grow, and come up with ways to also be respectful and respectful to the community, and also give it basically make it a more symbiotic relationship between the company and the community. That would be your goal. Your goal is to drive all variables to get that symbiotic relationship between the company and the community, where the company benefits with profit margins, the community basically benefits with the upliftment of the community through social networking and all that part. So that will be how you can basically set aside that. And in terms of the government regulations, you can be involved in government regulations and government studies. If you go in and let's say request a grant on knowing how the high impact of cannabis regulations and cannabis rules and regulations from the federal side is affecting the wealth of certain communities, or how regulations have basically shifted more private companies and almost to take advantage of certain communities. Your goal at this point is to study and bring out facts or variables to see a correlation between the community regulations, the community and private companies, and see where if there's a problem, there's a negative impact of it. Your goal is to find those negative impact and provide solutions through, if it's through recommendation through regulations or through recommendation through outreach or through recommendations. Your goal is to study and provide quantitative results as a social scientist at that point, quantitative results on how the impact of cannabis being introduced in this community with different variables and also a lot of variables. Your goal is to take those variables and come up with a story, with a storyline on how the cannabis is affecting that community. If it's negative, find solutions. If positive, how do we maintain it and how do we get it better to make it more and more better. So that's your goal as a social scientist, and that will be your goal. And the government will pay you handsomely for doing this kind of research. And private industries will pay you handsomely for basically helping their product spread and having a positive outlook. Most of them call it market research. I call it social engineering, because you're looking at not just marketing the product, you are looking at how the product affects the community at the same time. So that symbiotic, your goal is to get that symbiotic for a private company, to get that symbiotic relationship going. For the government, your goal is to make sure the impact on the community, it's not as negative. If it is, how can we make it a positive impact? How can we make it better? So again, that was the social side, the social engineering side, the social. That's what once the cannabis industry starts rolling out in a federal scale, that's what individuals will start looking at. The major impact of the cannabis industry and the major impact of the cannabis goods on our youths, on everybody, and see how that impacts the wealth, health, and of the whole community itself. So you're looking at social science, social proof, and you're using certain skills again, mathematical modeling, AI, and machine learning to basically make up those aspects itself. If somebody they cross it, just to be careful where they cross it. You there yet? And next is the scientific part. with scientific research in dealing with the cannabis industry is different. With scientific research, there's a lot of things that needs to be looked into. Recently, we've seen the FDA come out with CBD and the problems with CBD and how that hasn't been, there's numerous claims of it being a miracle drug without no scientific proof. So the goal of the scientific community is to show how CBD is impacting the body through the endocannabinoid system. And also we still have 115 compounds. The goal is to also show how these 115 compounds can basically impact the body and impact what kind of problems or what kind of cures or what kind of solutions can come up with researching one of these 115 compounds. Not only that, we're also researching how each of the 115 compounds work with different medications that deal with depression, with chemotherapy, with all. So the goal is to say, okay, and now we've seen 115. Let's see how each of these compounds can support medication that's already dealing with depression, medication that's already dealing with dietary needs, medication that's dealing with pains. So the goal of this is scientific research is to show how medications interact with each other and how they interact in the body. And in the private industry, you can see, and in the government, you can see research already being done little by little, but more researchers and more research is needed. And with that said, sometimes you might require a PhD or master's level in terms of doing some of this scientific research, or you must have a considerable amount of experience in medical research or in any kind of clinical or human research. So the goal is to basically get that and start looking at the plant itself and how it affects, how it's basically in line with different products. Even with scientific research, brands like Coca-Cola or any kind of brands that is looking into infusing their product into infusing cannabis with their product will need researchers to see the effects, especially when you're doing alcoholic-based products. You need to know that research to see the effects and see how regulations and all that can be affected with those infused products. So there's going to be a lot of research needed, not only in AI, scientific, and social, but a lot more research that I haven't delved with. But these are just a few of the research areas that will be very, very greatly impacted by the incoming cannabis industry. So again, my name is Patrick Onochi. I'm a cannabis engineer, your informational weed man. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.